The cold night air settled thick over the desolate highway as David Turner drove his truck through the winding roads of the Navajo desert. His fingers tapped impatiently on the steering wheel. The gas station attendant back in town had warned him not to drive through the desert after dark, especially alone. Things walk these lands at night, things that wear the skin of others. David had laughed it off. Superstitions didn't scare him. He was a rational man, a trucker who had spent years on the road. But as he glanced at the fuel gauge, he cursed under his breath. Half a tank left, but the next town was miles away. The desert stretched endlessly on either side of the road, vast and empty. A coyote howled in the distance. The sound made the hair on his arms stand on end. Then he saw it. A woman standing on the side of the road, waving her arms frantically. David slowed down, his headlights illuminating her pale face. She looked terrified. Her clothes were torn and she was barefoot. "Help me," she screamed. David hesitated. He had heard horror stories of hitchhikers leading unsuspecting drivers into traps, but something about her seemed real. He rolled down the window slightly. "What happened?" They killed my family. Please let me in." David sighed and unlocked the door. "Get in." She scrambled inside, slamming the door shut. Her chest heaved as she gasped for breath. "Thank you. Thank you." "Who killed your family?" David asked, watching her from the corner of his eye. She shook her head violently. "I don't know. I don't know what they were. They looked like—" She stopped, her eyes widening. "We have to go. Now." David didn't need to be told twice. He stepped on the gas. As they sped down the highway, the woman kept glancing over her shoulder, her body trembling. "What's your name?" David asked. She hesitated. "Lena." Something about the name felt off. "You from around here?" She nodded slowly, but didn't elaborate. A few miles later, David's gut told him something was wrong. The way she sat, too still. The way she breathed, too measured. Then he noticed her hands. They were caked in blood. David gripped the wheel tighter. "You're bleeding." Lena snapped her head toward him, her lips curling in a smile. "It's not mine." A chill ran through him. "Whose is it?" She didn't answer. Instead, she tilted her head, studying him like a predator watching prey. A terrible thought crept into David's mind. Things that wear the skin of others. He forced himself to stay calm. "You need medical help." "I need something else," she whispered. Her voice sounded different now, deeper, like two voices speaking at once. David's heart pounded. His fingers itched toward the knife tucked in the glove compartment. Then Lena began to change. Her skin shifted unnaturally, her face stretching, twisting into something inhuman. Her eyes darkened, her mouth splitting into a jagged grin. David yanked the wheel, swerving violently. The truck skidded off the road, slamming into a ditch. The impact knocked the breath out of him, his vision blurred. When he looked up, Lena was gone. Or rather, the thing that had been wearing her skin was gone. David stumbled out of the truck, gasping. The desert was eerily silent. The only sound was the wind whispering through the rocks. Then he heard it. A voice. His own voice. "Help me," it called. David turned, his blood turning to ice. There, standing a few feet away, was himself. An exact copy. It wore his clothes, had his face, but its eyes were hollow. David's breath hitched. The thing smiled, its lips stretching impossibly wide. "I don't need Lena's skin anymore," it said. "Yours will do." It lunged. David barely had time to react. He dove to the ground, rolling away as the creature swiped at him. He scrambled to his feet and ran toward the truck. The creature laughed, a sound that echoed through the empty desert. "You can't run, David," it taunted. "I already know you." David reached the truck, yanked open the door, and grabbed the knife from the glove compartment. The creature was closer now. David gripped the knife, his mind racing. How do you kill something that isn't human? Then he remembered. The gas station attendant had mentioned something else. They fear fire. David's eyes darted to the jerry can in the back of the truck. He grabbed it and turned just as the creature lunged again. He doused it in gasoline, his hands shaking. The creature screamed. David flicked open his lighter. "Burn in hell, freak." He tossed it. Flames erupted, consuming the creature. It writhed, howling in agony, its skin bubbling and peeling away. David watched, his heart hammering, until it was nothing but ash. Silence fell over the desert once more. Shaken, David climbed back into his truck, his hands still trembling. He needed to get out of here. He turned the key. The engine roared to life. As he pulled onto the road, he forced himself to breathe. It was over. Or so he thought. A few miles later, he glanced at the rearview mirror and froze. In the reflection, his eyes were black. And then he smiled, but he hadn't meant to.